The massive creature lay sprawled across the crimson sand, its scales dulled from their usual brilliant sapphire to a lifeless gray. Each breath came in ragged gasps that sent small clouds of dust swirling into the alien atmosphere. Zarkon had traveled across 3 star systems, but his journey ended here, on this desolate planet at the edge of known space. His throat burned like molten metal. The last drop of water had passed his lips 7 rotations ago, when his ship's life support systems finally failed. The emergency landing had damaged his remaining supplies, and now the mighty Draconis warrior found himself reduced to this pitiful state. His species could survive many things: extreme temperatures, radiation, even the vacuum of space for short periods. But water was essential to their biology, just as it was for most life in the universe. The irony wasn't lost on him. He who had conquered entire worlds, who had led the Draconis fleet to victory in countless battles, would die not in glorious combat, but from simple thirst on an unnamed planet. His 4 wings, once capable of carrying him through nebulae, now lay limp against the ground. The magnificent horns that crowned his head, symbols of his rank and power, felt heavy as stone. Through his fading vision, Zarkon noticed movement in the distance. A small figure approached across the wasteland, kicking up little puffs of red dust with each step. As it drew closer, he could make out more details. Bipedal, much smaller than even the youngest Draconis, wearing some kind of environmental suit. The creature stopped about 20 meters away, and Zarkon could see its face through the transparent helmet. A human. Of all the species in the galaxy, it had to be a human who would witness his final moments. The girl, for she appeared young even by human standards, stood perfectly still, studying him with those peculiar eyes that showed white around the colored center. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Most species regarded them as primitive, reckless, and far too emotional for their own good. The Draconis Empire had barely acknowledged their existence, considering them beneath notice. But this human child showed no fear. That alone was remarkable. Most sentient beings fled in terror at the sight of a Draconis, even a dying one. She tilted her head. A gesture Zarkon had learned indicated curiosity among her kind, and took a step closer. "You're hurt," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the external speakers of her suit. The translation implant in Zarkon's ear converted her words, though he was too weak to respond. She moved closer still, and he could see the concern in her features, another human trait that most species found bewildering. They cared about things that didn't benefit them, showed compassion to enemies, and formed emotional attachments to almost anything. The girl, she couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 Earth years, knelt in the sand beside his massive head. Her entire body was smaller than one of his claws, yet she showed no hesitation. She reached out with one gloved hand and gently touched his scales. "You're burning up," she murmured. "And your scales, they're supposed to be blue, aren't they? I've seen pictures." She looked around, her gaze settling on his damaged ship in the distance. "Did you crash? Are you alone?" Zarkon managed the slightest nod, a movement that sent fresh waves of agony through his body. The girl's eyes widened behind her helmet's visor. "You can understand me. That's amazing. My name is Emma Chen. My parents are xenobiologists at the research station about 5 kilometers from here. I wasn't supposed to wander this far, but I saw your ship come down and I just had to investigate." She paused, studying him more closely. "You need water, don't you? That's why your scales are changing color." Another weak nod. Emma bit her lower lip, a gesture that Zarkon didn't understand, but seemed to indicate deep thought. "I have some in my suit's emergency supply, but it's not much, maybe half a liter." She looked back toward where she'd come from. The station has plenty, but it's too far. You'd never make it, and I can't carry you." She stood up and began pacing, her small boots leaving tiny impressions in the sand. Zarkon watched through dimming eyes as this tiny human child tried to solve a problem that had defeated him. A veteran of 100 campaigns. He wanted to tell her to leave, to save herself the trauma of watching him die, but his throat could produce nothing but a weak rasp. "Wait," Emma said suddenly, spinning around to face him. "Your ship. Even if the main systems are damaged, emergency supplies are always in sealed compartments. They'd survive a crash. Do you have water stored anywhere on board?" Hope, an emotion Zarkon had thought extinguished, flickered briefly. He had emergency water reserves, but they were sealed behind blast doors that required biometric authentication. Authentication that needed him to be standing at the control panel. In his current state, he could barely lift his head. With tremendous effort, he raised one claw and pointed toward his ship, then let it fall back to the sand. Emma understood immediately. "There's water on your ship, but you can't get to it." She looked from him to the vessel, her expression growing determined. "How do I access it? Can you tell me?" Zarkon's translator could convert incoming speech, but he had no way to communicate complex instructions. He tried to form words, but only a painful wheeze emerged. Emma's face fell. "You can't speak. Of course, your throat must be completely dry." She resumed her pacing, then stopped abruptly. "Pictures, can you draw?" She knelt and began smoothing out a section of sand. "Here, use your claw. Show me where the water is and how to get it." It was such a simple solution, yet it had never occurred to him. Perhaps the human's reputation for creative thinking wasn't entirely undeserved. With effort that felt monumental, Zarkon dragged one claw through the sand, creating a rough schematic of his ship's interior. He marked the location of the emergency supplies, then drew the biometric panel. Emma studied the drawing intently. "Okay, I see where it is, but this symbol here? That's some kind of lock?" At his nod, she continued. "And it needs you? Your hand? Or, wait." She looked at his face, then at his claws. "Biometric. It needs to scan part of you to open." Another nod. Emma's expression grew troubled. "But you can't walk there, and I can't carry you." She fell silent for a moment, then her eyes lit up. "Unless I don't need to carry all of you." Before Zarkon could process what she meant, Emma had pulled a small cutting tool from her suit's utility belt. "This is going to sound crazy, but hear me out. Your scales, do they grow back, like human fingernails?" Confusion must have shown in his eyes because Emma quickly explained. "Biometric locks usually scan for specific biological markers. If I could take a few of your scales to the scanner, it might be enough to trigger the system. It's not like I'm asking to cut off your hand or anything." The audacity of it was breathtaking. This child, barely reaching adulthood by her species' standards, was proposing to perform crude surgery on a draconis warrior to hack into his ship's security. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Zarkon extended his foreclaw, spreading his digits to expose the softer scales underneath. Emma's eyes widened. "You're saying yes? You trust me?" When he nodded, she swallowed hard. Okay, I can do this. It's just like the biology samples Mom collects, except bigger." She activated the cutting tool, its plasma edge glowing blue-white. "This might hurt. I'm sorry." With surprising steadiness for one so young, she carefully removed 3 scales from the designated area. Zarkon barely felt it. The pain was nothing compared to the burning in his throat. "I'll be as fast as I can," Emma promised, tucking the scales into a sample container on her belt. Just hold on, okay? Don't you dare die on me. I've never met a real dragon before, and I have like 1,000,000 questions." Despite everything, Zarkon felt the ghost of amusement. Even facing a dying alien predator, The human child's curiosity remained unquenched. He watched her run toward his ship, her small form growing smaller with distance until she disappeared into the wreckage. Time lost meaning as he waited. Each breath became a monumental task. The red sun above seemed to pulse in rhythm with his failing hearts. Had the human child succeeded? Had she become lost in the twisted corridors of his ship? Had the damage been too severe for even emergency supplies to survive? Just as the darkness began to close in, he heard running footsteps. Emma burst into view, struggling under the weight of two large emergency water containers. She was breathing hard, her face red with exertion behind the helmet's visor. "I got it!" she gasped, dropping to her knees beside him. "The scales worked. The computer was confused at first, but then it recognized your genetic pattern and opened right up." She fumbled with the container's seal. "How do I... Where does the water go? Your mouth?" Zarkon managed to open his jaws slightly, revealing the complex structure of his throat. Emma didn't hesitate, lifting the container and carefully pouring a stream of precious liquid into his mouth. The sensation was indescribable, like life itself flowing back into his desiccated cells. "Slowly," Emma cautioned, though she needn't have worried. Zarkon's body absorbed every drop with desperate efficiency. "There's plenty more. Take your time." As the water worked its way through his system, Zarkon felt strength returning. Not much, but enough. His scales began to shift, gray giving way to hints of their natural blue. His breathing steadied. "It's working!" Emma exclaimed. "Your color's coming back." She prepared the second container. "This is so cool. I mean, not that you almost died, that's terrible. But the way your biology processes water is fascinating. Mom's going to freak out when I tell her about this." After the second container, Zarkon could finally speak, though his voice remained rough. "Thank you." Emma nearly dropped the empty container. "You can talk. Your voice is exactly like I imagined a dragon would sound, kind of rumbly and deep." She caught herself. "Sorry, I'm rambling. It's just... This is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me." "You saved my life," Zarkon managed. "A debt I cannot repay." "You don't owe me anything," Emma said firmly. Anyone would have helped. Zarkon wanted to tell her how wrong she was. His own species would have seen weakness and left him to die. The Valorians would have celebrated the death of an enemy. The Nexari would have harvested his body for useful components. But this human child had risked herself to save a stranger, a member of a species that had shown her kind nothing but disdain. "What's your name?" Emma asked. "I told you mine, but I don't know yours." "Zarkon, war leader of the Third Fleet." Saying his title felt hollow now, faced with this child who had shown more courage than many decorated warriors. "Zarkon," Emma repeated carefully. "That's a strong name. It suits you." She looked back toward the research station. "Listen, there's a lot more water at our base, and food if you need it. My parents could check you over, make sure you're okay. They're really good with alien biology." The offer stunned him. Not just aid, but ongoing assistance, medical care. Welcome. "Your parents. They would not object to helping an enemy?" Emma's forehead creased. "Enemy? Why would you be our enemy? We've never even met before. The Draconis Empire has not been welcoming to humanity's expansion into space." "Oh, that?" Emma waved dismissively. "That's politics stuff. You're not an empire, you're just Zarkon, and you needed help. That's all that matters." The simple clarity of her worldview was staggering. In a few words, this child had cut through centuries of imperial doctrine and speciesist philosophy. You're just Zarkon, and you needed help. "I would be grateful for your assistance," he said finally, "but I cannot walk far." Emma grinned. "Don't worry about that. I already called for help." She held up a communication device. Dad's bringing the hover sled. He's used it to transport specimens way bigger than you. Well, maybe not way bigger. You're pretty huge. You called for help before you knew if you could save me? Of course. I told them I found someone who needed help. The rest was just details. She sat cross-legged in the sand beside his head. They'll be here in about 20 minutes. Do you feel up to telling me about your ship while we wait? The engineering is incredible. I've never seen anything like those crystal matrices in your control room. As Zarkon began explaining the basics of Draconis technology to an eager audience of one, he reflected on the strangeness of the situation. He had come to this nameless world to die, brought down by simple equipment failure and bad luck. Instead, he had encountered something far more powerful than any weapon in the Draconis arsenal: human compassion, embodied in a small girl who saw not an alien dragon, but simply someone who needed help. The red sun continued its journey across the sky, but it no longer seemed oppressive. Emma peppered him with questions, her enthusiasm infectious. When the hover sled arrived, carrying 2 adult humans who showed the same inexplicable kindness as their daughter, Zarkon realized his view of the universe had shifted fundamentally. The humans helped him onto the transport with careful efficiency, Emma chattering the whole time about the medical equipment at their station and how excited she was to learn more about Draconis biology. As they glided across the wasteland toward the research station, Zarkon found himself looking forward to something he had never imagined. A future shaped not by conquest or conflict, but by the simple act of one child choosing to help a stranger in need. The journey to the station passed quickly, with Emma pointing out various landmarks and explaining her parents' research. The 2 adult humans, Dr. Chen and Dr. Martinez, asked diagnostic questions about his physiology, already planning his treatment. Their matter-of-fact acceptance of his presence was as surprising as their daughters had been. "You'll need at least 40 liters to fully rehydrate," Dr. Chen said, consulting a medical scanner. "We can synthesize more if needed. The mineral content won't be exactly what your species requires, but we can adjust it based on these readings." "Emma says your ship has damaged life support," Dr. Martinez added. "I'm an engineer as well as a xenobiologist. Maybe I can help with repairs once you're feeling better." The research station appeared ahead, a cluster of white domes against the red landscape. It was small, clearly designed for a minimal crew, but it represented sanctuary. As they approached, Zarkon saw other humans emerging, the full complement of the station, no more than a dozen people. They watched with curiosity but no fear as the hover sled arrived. "Don't worry," Emma whispered to him. "They're all nice. Dr. Patel makes the best food, and Dr. Johnson tells really funny jokes. You'll like them." As the humans worked together to transfer him into their medical facility, Zarkon experienced something entirely new, the feeling of being welcomed not despite his alien nature, but because of it. They saw him not as a threat or a conquest, but as an opportunity to learn, to help, to connect. The medical bay was small but well-equipped. Dr. Chen and her team worked with quiet efficiency, hooking him up to hydration systems and monitoring equipment. Emma stayed by his side, translating when needed and offering constant reassurance. "See? I told you we'd take care of you," she said as the first IV line began delivering fluids. "Tomorrow, when you're feeling better, I can show you around the station. We have this really cool observation dome where you can see 3 moons at night. And the greenhouse. You have to see Mom's plants. Some of them are from Earth, but others are native to this planet. There's this one that glows blue in the dark. It's amazing." As the fluids entered his system and exhaustion finally claimed him, Zarkon's last thought was of the report he would eventually have to file with the Draconis High Command. How could he explain that a human child had saved his life? How could he convey the paradigm shift he had experienced? How could he make them understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, but their seemingly limitless capacity for compassion. He drifted off to sleep with Emma still talking, describing the wonders of her small world with infectious enthusiasm. For the first time in his long life, the mighty dragon felt truly safe among strangers who had become, inexplicably, friends. Zarkon woke to find sunlight streaming through the medical bay's window, not the harsh red glare of the local star, but filtered and softened by the station's adaptive glass. For a moment, he lay still, marveling at the absence of pain. His throat no longer burned, his scales had returned to their proper sapphire shade, and his heart's beat in steady rhythm. "You're awake!" Emma's voice came from nearby. She sat curled in a chair beside his bed, a digital pad in her hands. "You've been asleep for almost 15 hours. Mom said that's normal for your species after severe dehydration. How do you feel?" "Alive," Zarkon said, his voice still rough but functional. "Thanks to you?" Emma beamed. "I helped, but everyone pitched in. Dr. Patel made a special nutrient solution based on your blood work, and Dr. Johnson figured out how to modify our equipment to monitor your triple heart system. Oh, and Dad started working on your ship. He says the damage isn't as bad as it looks." Zarkon carefully sat up, noting the IV lines still attached to his foreleg. The medical bay was larger than he'd initially realized, clearly designed to accommodate various species. The humans had even extended his bed using cargo platforms to support his full length. "Your people show remarkable adaptability," he observed. "Most species would struggle to treat unfamiliar biology." "We have to be adaptable," Emma said. "Humans are new to space, so we're always playing catch-up. Mom says our greatest advantage is that we don't assume we know everything." She paused. "Unlike some species who think they're superior to everyone else." The mild rebuke in her tone made Zarkon's neck spines twitch with embarrassment. "You refer to the Draconis Empire's attitudes?" "Not just you guys. The Valorians are worse, and don't get me started on the Nexari. They came by the station once and spent the whole time explaining how inefficient our research methods were." Emma made a face. "At least dragons are honestly arrogant. The Nexari pretend to be helpful while insulting you." Despite himself, Zarkon found himself making a sound that might have been laughter. "An astute observation, though I must warn you against calling us dragons in formal settings. The Draconis consider it diminutive. But you look exactly like dragons from Earth mythology. It's meant as a compliment." "Dragons are awesome!" Emma's eyes lit up. "Hey, want to see something cool? I've been researching while you slept." She turned her pad toward him, showing images of Earth creatures from human legends. The resemblance to his species was uncanny. Great winged reptiles breathing fire, hoarding treasures, battling knights. "How is this possible?" Zarkon asked. "Humans had no contact with galactic civilization until recently." Emma shrugged. "Mom thinks maybe ancient Draconis visited Earth thousands of years ago. Or it could be convergent mythology. Lots of species have similar legends. But isn't it amazing? Humans have been dreaming about meeting dragons forever. And now you're here." The door opened, admitting Dr. Chen carrying a medical scanner. "Good morning, Zarkon. How are you feeling?" "Much improved, Doctor. I owe your station a great debt." "Nonsense," Dr. Chen said briskly, beginning her scans. "We're researchers. Helping you helps us learn. Besides, Emma would never have forgiven us if we'd turned you away." She studied the readings. "Your hydration levels are at 85%. Another day of IV fluids and you should be fully recovered." "Mom, can I show Zarkon around the station?" Emma asked. "He's been stuck in bed forever." 15 hours is hardly forever and our patient needs rest." "But Mom—" "Actually," Zarkon interrupted, "I would appreciate some movement. My species doesn't do well with extended inactivity." Dr. Chen looked between her daughter's hopeful face and her unusual patient. "Very well. But stay connected to the mobile IV unit and no strenuous activity. Emma, that means no climbing in the observation dome. Emma jumped up, practically vibrating with excitement. This is going to be so fun! Where should we start? The greenhouse? The lab? Oh, the recreation room has a great view. As Zarkon carefully extracted himself from the bed, he noticed how the humans had modified the doorways, removing panels to accommodate his size. Such foresight spoke of a species accustomed to adapting their environment for others' needs. Emma led him through the station's corridors, chattering constantly. This is the main lab where Mom and Dad do most of their work. They're studying how different species might be able to share ecosystems without the usual problems. And here's where Dr. Patel does his chemical analysis. He's trying to create universal food supplements that any species can digest. Ambitious, Zarkon noted. The Galactic Council has attempted similar projects with little success. That's because the Council always puts the same species in charge, Emma said. Humans think differently. We're used to diversity. Earth has millions of different life forms, and we evolved alongside all of them. Dad says that's why humans are good at finding connections others miss. They entered the greenhouse, and Zarkon stopped in amazement. The space was filled with plants from dozens of worlds, growing in carefully controlled sections that mimicked their native environments. The air hummed with life. Insects, small flying creatures, even what appeared to be a miniature ecosystem in one corner. Dr. Chen wasn't exaggerating, he said. This is remarkable. Emma beamed with pride. Each section represents a different planet's biosphere. Mom's trying to prove that species from different worlds can coexist if you understand their needs. Look, this section has plants from 3 different systems growing together. As they walked among the greenery, Emma pointing out various specimens, Zarkon found himself reassessing humanity yet again. The greenhouse wasn't just a research facility. It was a testament to the human belief that different forms of life could thrive together. No wonder they had been so ready to help him. Emma, there you are, a new voice called out. A young human male jogged toward them, stopping short when he saw Zarkon. Whoa, you're even bigger than Emma said. This is my brother Marcus, Emma said. He's studying xenotechnology with Dad. Marcus, this is Zarkon. Marcus recovered quickly, offering what Zarkon recognized as a greeting gesture. Nice to meet you. Emma hasn't stopped talking about you since yesterday. She says your ship has quantum matrices we've only seen in theory. You understand quantum engineering? Zarkon asked, surprised. A little. I mean, human tech isn't nearly as advanced as yours, but the principles are universal, right? Energy is energy. Matter is matter. The trick is figuring out how different species manipulate them. Marcus's enthusiasm reminded him of Emma's. Would you mind if I asked you about your propulsion system later? Dad and I have been trying to figure it out from the damaged components, but... Marcus, Emma interrupted. Zarkon's supposed to be resting, not giving engineering lectures. It's quite all right, Zarkon said, amused by the sibling dynamic. I would be happy to discuss it. Your father's assistance with my ship deserves any knowledge I can share. They continued the tour, with Marcus joining them. The recreation room did indeed have an impressive view of the landscape. The kitchen smelled of unfamiliar but appetizing foods, and the research labs contained equipment that, while less advanced than Draconis technology, showed ingenious adaptations. You use biological components in your computers, Zarkon observed in one lab. That's unusual. Dr. Johnson's idea, Marcus explained. She figured if we're going to understand alien biology, why not incorporate it into our tools? The bio-neural interfaces help us process data in ways traditional computers can't. The Nexari would be appalled. They believe in strict separation between organic and mechanical systems. The Nexari are appalled by everything humans do, Emma said. They think we're chaos incarnate. Aren't we? Marcus grinned. Remember when we accidentally created that self-replicating algae? That was your fault. I told you not to mix those samples. As the siblings bickered good-naturedly, Zarkon felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest. Not physical, his hearts were functioning normally, but something else. It took him a moment to identify it. Contentment. He was enjoying himself. The tour ended in the observation dome Emma had mentioned. The transparent sphere offered a 360-degree view of the landscape and sky. 3 moons were visible even in daylight, each a different color against the pale sky. At night, when all 5 moons are up, the whole desert glows, Emma said. Different minerals in the sand react to different wavelengths of moonlight. It's like a rainbow made of land. Your species finds beauty in everything, Zarkon observed. Even desolate worlds. Nothing's desolate if you look closely enough, Emma said. There's always something interesting. Like you. You crash-landed on a barely habitable planet, and the first thing that happens is you make friends. That's not desolate, that's lucky. Friends. The word sat strangely in Zarkon's mind. The Draconis had allies, subordinates, rivals, enemies. But friends? The concept existed, but it was rare, usually developing over decades of shared combat. Yet this human child had declared friendship after knowing him for less than a day. "Hey," Marcus said suddenly, "want to see something cool? We've been working on this for months." He pulled out a small device, pressing buttons in sequence. The dome's walls shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by a star field. "Holographic projection," Marcus explained proudly. "We mapped the local stellar neighborhood and can display it from any perspective. Look, there's your home system." He pointed to a cluster of stars. "And here's Earth. And here's where we are now." Zarkon stared at the display. From this perspective, the vast distances between species territories seemed insignificant. Stars clustered together like neighbors, regardless of which species claimed them. "The galaxy looks different from here," he said quietly. "Good different or bad different?" Emma asked. "I'm not certain." "Different." He studied the display more intently. "Your species has traveled far in 50 years. "We're explorers," Marcus said. "It's what humans do. We see something new and we have to learn about it. That's why the other species find us annoying. We're always asking questions, poking around, trying things. And helping people," Emma added. "Even when they don't ask for it. Even when they're giant alien dragons who could eat us." "I don't eat sentient beings," Zarkon said, mildly affronted. "I know, but you could. You've got really impressive teeth and claws, and you're basically a living weapon. But you're also nice." Emma tilted her head. "That surprises you, doesn't it? That I think you're nice." It did surprise him. In his entire career, no one had ever called war leader Zarkon nice. Fearsome, certainly. Respected, often. Dangerous, always. But nice? "The Draconis are not known for being nice," he admitted. "Maybe that's because nobody ever gave you the chance," Emma suggested. "Everyone expects dragons to be scary, so that's what you become. But when someone treats you like just another person who needs help, you act like one." The profound simplicity of her observation left Zarkon speechless. Before he could formulate a response, his communication implant chimed. The sound was unwelcome. It meant his ship's communications had been repaired enough to receive messages. "I must answer this," he said reluctantly. The message was from his second-in-command, demanding an update on his status. Zarkon had been missing for 3 days now, and the fleet was growing concerned. He composed a brief response, confirming his survival and ongoing repairs. He did not mention the humans. "Is everything okay?" Emma asked, noting his change in demeanor. "My fleet is looking for me. I'll need to leave once my ship is repaired." The words tasted bitter. Emma's face fell. Oh, of course. You have important dragon things to do. Emma, Marcus said gently. Zarkon has responsibilities. We can't keep him here forever. I know, Emma said quietly. I wish you could stay longer. There's so much more to show you. And you haven't even tried Dr. Patel's cooking yet. He was going to make something special tonight to celebrate your recovery. The disappointment in her voice was painful to hear. Zarkon found himself wanting to comfort her, another unfamiliar impulse. My repairs will take time, he said carefully, and I must fully recover before attempting space travel, perhaps a few more days. Emma's smile returned like sunrise. Really? You'll stay? The Draconis are nothing if not pragmatic. It would be foolish to leave before I'm fully prepared. It was rationalization, and they all knew it, but Emma bounced on her toes with happiness. This is great. There's so much more to do. We can watch the moonrise tonight, and tomorrow I can show you the caves where we found those crystalline formations, and Dr. Johnson wanted to play chess with you. She says species that develop space travel always invent chess somehow, and... Emma, Marcus laughed. Let him breathe. He just agreed to stay. Don't scare him off with your entire itinerary. As the siblings playfully argued, Zarkon gazed at the holographic stars surrounding them. Somewhere among those points of light, the Draconis fleet waited for his return. They would expect a report on this world's resources, its strategic value, its potential for exploitation. They would not understand if he spoke of greenhouses where different worlds grew together, of children who saw wonder in everything, of a species that offered help without calculating benefit. Zarkon? Emma's voice drew him back. You okay? You looked sad for a moment. I'm well, simply thinking. He looked down at her eager face. Now, tell me more about these caves. Crystalline formations could indicate useful minerals. Emma launched into an enthusiastic description, Marcus adding technical details. As they talked, Zarkon made a decision. He would stay a few days more, learn what he could about these remarkable humans. And when he returned to his fleet, perhaps his report would focus less on resources and more on potential. The potential for something the galaxy desperately needed but didn't know how to find. The simple act of connection across difference. The afternoon passed quickly. They left the dome to find Dr. Martinez waiting, eager to discuss the repairs. Emma insisted on coming along, translating technical terms when needed. The damage was indeed less severe than initial assessment suggested. Primary systems were intact, but several crucial components needed recalibration. I can fabricate replacements for these parts, Dr. Martinez said, studying a damaged relay. But I'll need to understand the specifications. Our materials might not be exact matches. I can provide the necessary parameters, Zarkon offered, though human fabrication technology may struggle with some requirements. You'd be surprised what we can do with limited resources, Dr. Martinez smiled. Humans are experts at making do with what we have. Emma, remember when we had to build a water purification system using only kitchen equipment? That was an emergency, Emma protested. And it worked, didn't it? They spent the next hour going through technical specifications, with Zarkon continually surprised by human ingenuity. Where Draconis technology relied on precision and power, human solutions emphasized flexibility and adaptation. Dr. Martinez proposed several workarounds that were inelegant by Draconis standards, but would undoubtedly function. Your species approaches problems differently, Zarkon observed. You see obstacles as puzzles to solve, rather than barriers to overcome through force. Force doesn't work when you're the smallest species in the galaxy, Dr. Martinez replied. We had to get clever. As the local sun began to set, Emma insisted Zarkon join the station's communal dinner. The dining hall had been rearranged to accommodate his size, with several tables pushed together and reinforced. The entire station staff gathered. treating his presence as natural as any other colleague. Dr. Patel had indeed prepared something special, a carefully balanced meal that accounted for Draconis' dietary needs while incorporating human culinary techniques. The result was surprisingly pleasant. "So," Dr. Johnson said, leaning forward with interest, "Emma tells me you're a war leader. That's a military rank?" "Correct. I command the 3rd Fleet of the Draconis Empire." Zarkon paused. "Or rather, I did. My current status is uncertain. Because you crashed. Because I survived through human intervention. Some among my people would see that as weakness." The table fell silent. Then Dr. Chen spoke. "That's ridiculous. Survival is never weakness. It's the most basic drive of any living thing. The Draconis view such matters differently. We believe in strength through self-reliance." "But nobody's truly self-reliant," Emma argued. "Everyone needs help sometimes, even dragons." "Especially dragons, apparently," Zarkon said, surprising himself with the self-deprecating humor. The humans laughed, and the tension eased. The meal continued with wide-ranging conversation. The humans asked about Draconis culture, space travel, and other species. They shared stories of Earth, of humanity's stumbling steps into the galaxy, of their dreams for the future. Zarkon found himself contributing more than he'd intended, drawn in by their genuine interest. "You know," Dr. Patel said as they finished eating, "in all my years studying xenobiology, this is the first time I've shared a meal with a Draconis. Thank you for that." "I should thank you. This is the first time I've experienced such warmth from another species." "First time for everything," Emma said happily. "Come on, the moons are rising. You have to see this." They made their way back to the observation dome, now filled with the soft light of 5 moons. As Emma had promised, the desert below glowed with subtle colors as different minerals responded to the moonlight. It was indeed beautiful in an alien way. "Each moon has a name," Emma explained, pointing them out. "That blue one is Seren. It means star in some Earth language. The green one is Jade, the red is Ruby, the silver is Luna, and the gold one is Sol. You named them after Earth concepts." "Humans name everything," Marcus said. "It's how we make strange places feel like home." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the light show below. Zarkon found himself memorizing the moment, the view, the company, the feeling of belonging somewhere he had no right to belong. "Zarkon," Emma said quietly, "when you leave, will you ever come back?" The question hung in the air. Truthfully, he didn't know. The galaxy was vast, his duties demanding. But looking at her hopeful face, he couldn't bear to say no. "Perhaps. The universe is full of possibilities." "That's not really an answer. It's the only one I have." Emma nodded, seemingly accepting this. "Well, if you do come back, we'll be here. And if you don't, I'm glad we met. Even if it was only for a few days." "As am I," Zarkon said, meaning it more than he'd meant anything in a long time. They stayed in the dome until the humans grew tired. As the station settled into its night routine, Zarkon remained awake in the medical bay, thinking. In 2 days, these humans had shown him more kindness than he'd experienced in decades of military service. They'd asked nothing in return, expected no payment or alliance. They'd helped because helping was what they did. His communication implant chimed again. Another message from the fleet. They were growing impatient, threatening to send a search party. He would need to leave soon, whether his ship was fully repaired or not. But for tonight, he pushed those concerns aside. Tonight, he was just Zarkon, friend to a human child who saw dragons as wonderful rather than terrible. Tomorrow would bring duty and decisions, but tonight brought something rarer and more precious. Peace. The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity and discovery. True to her word, Emma showed Zarkon every corner of the research station and its surroundings. They explored the crystal caves, where formations sang in harmonic frequencies when touched. They visited the ancient impact crater that Dr. Chen theorized might have brought the first organic molecules to this world. They even attempted to teach Zarkon human card games, which resulted in considerable laughter when his claws proved too large for the cards. But beneath the joy lay a growing tension. Each repaired component of his ship brought departure closer. Each message from his fleet grew more urgent. On the fourth morning, as Dr. Martinez announced the final repairs were complete, the inevitable could no longer be delayed. "The engine tests perfectly," Dr. Martinez reported, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Navigation is online, life support fully functional. She'll fly better than before, actually. We reinforced some of the stress points we noticed." "You have my gratitude," Zarkon said formally. "The modifications are elegant." Emma stood quietly beside her father, uncharacteristically subdued. She'd been like this all morning, as if she knew what the completed repairs meant. "I should depart soon," Zarkon continued. "My fleet grows concerned. Further delay might prompt them to investigate, and I would prefer to avoid that complication." "Of course," Dr. Martinez said. "We understand you have obligations." The walk back to the station felt funeral. Emma trudged beside him, occasionally kicking at stones. Finally, she spoke. "I made you something." She pulled a small device from her pocket. "It's a recording of the moonrise, all 5 moons with the light patterns on the desert, so you can remember." Zarkon accepted the gift carefully, his claws dwarfing the tiny device. "I will treasure it. It has other stuff, too. Pictures of the greenhouse, recordings of everyone saying goodbye, even Marcus's holographic star map. Oh, and I included my favorite Earth music. You probably won't like it, but maybe it'll remind you of us." The gift was so thoughtful, so human, that Zarkon found his voice catching. "Emma, An alert from his ship cut him off. Proximity warning, a Draconis vessel approaching. His heart sank. The fleet had grown tired of waiting. "What is it?" Emma asked, noting his sudden tension. "A ship from my fleet. They've come looking for me." He checked the readings. "They'll arrive within the hour." The station erupted in controlled chaos. The humans understood immediately. First contact between their small research outpost and a Draconis military vessel could go badly. They began securing sensitive data and preparing for potential evacuation. "Wait," Emma said. "They're your people. Won't they be happy you're okay? It's more complex than that. They'll want to know everything about this place, about you. The Draconis Empire views uncharted worlds as resources to be claimed." Emma's eyes widened with understanding. "They'll want to take over the planet. Possibly. Or they'll simply catalog it for future consideration. Either way, your peaceful research station will no longer be secret." "Then we won't let them find us," Marcus said firmly. "We can evacuate to the secondary site. Let them find an empty station." "That won't work," Dr. Chen said. "They'll scan for life signs, technology. Better to meet them openly and hope for the best." "No," Zarkon said suddenly. "There is another way." He moved to the communication console, activating a direct link to the approaching vessel. The face of his second-in-command, Vartos, appeared on screen. "War leader, you live. We feared the worst when your beacon failed." "I am well, Vartos. Minor technical difficulties now resolved." "And your location? Our scans show a small installation near your position." This was the moment. Zarkon could follow protocol, report the human presence, and let events unfold as they always did when the Empire encountered new species. "Or a defunct automated weather station," he said calmly. "Abandoned by the Nexari decades ago. No strategic value." Vartos frowned. "Our sensors indicate active power signatures. Geothermal collectors still functional but irrelevant. The planet itself is worthless. No significant resources, harsh climate, poor location. I've completed a full survey. Behind him, the humans stood frozen, hardly daring to breathe. Emma's hand found his tail, a tiny gesture of support that gave him strength to continue his deception. "Shall we dispatch a team to confirm your findings?" Vartos asked. "Unnecessary. I've documented everything required. The Empire has better uses for its resources than investigating abandoned Nexari garbage." He put command authority into his voice. "I'm returning now. Prepare to resume our patrol route." "Understood, War Leader. We await your arrival." The connection ended. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Emma threw her arms around his foreleg. "You lied for us. You lied to your own people." "I provided a selective interpretation of facts," Zarkon corrected, though he couldn't deny the truth. "The station is small, the planet harsh, and there are indeed geothermal collectors." "Thank you," Dr. Chen said quietly. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," he said. "I did." He looked at each human face, these people who had saved him, taught him, befriended him without condition. How could he betray that trust? How could he bring the Empire's cold efficiency to this place of warmth and wonder? "You realize what this means," Dr. Martinez said. "You'll have to maintain the lie. If they ever discover the truth, they won't. I'll file the report personally, mark the system as surveyed and irrelevant. The Empire has thousands of worlds. One more empty planet won't attract attention." "But if someone finds out, you'll be in trouble," Emma protested. "Big trouble, right?" "Perhaps. But some things are worth the risk." He looked down at her worried face. "Your kindness deserves protection. This station, your research, your dreams of species living in harmony. These things matter more than imperial expansion." Emma hugged his leg tighter. "I knew you were nice." "We should give you supplies," Dr. Chen said practically. "Water, food, anything you might need for your journey." "And a better communication device," Marcus added. "Something that can reach across star systems. You know, in case you need to send updates about your definitely empty planet survey." The next hour was bittersweet preparation. The humans loaded his ship with supplies, made final repairs, and said their goodbyes. Dr. Patel pressed packages of preserved food into his claws. Dr. Johnson gifted him a data pad loaded with human literature and music. Dr. Martinez provided technical manuals that might help with future repairs. "For emergencies," each said, as if he was simply going on a short trip rather than leaving forever. Finally, only Emma remained as he performed pre-flight checks. She stood by the boarding ramp, looking small but determined. "I have something else for you," she said. From behind her back, she produced a plant, one of the bioluminescent specimens from the greenhouse. "It's pretty hardy, only needs water once a week and minimal light. I thought, maybe it could make your ship feel less lonely." Zarkon accepted the plant with utmost care. "I'll guard it well." "Its name is Hope," Emma said. "I named it after you got better. Because that's what you gave me. Hope that different species don't have to be enemies, that the galaxy can be better than everyone says." "Emma," he found himself at a loss. How did one say goodbye to someone who had changed everything? "You'll come back," she said with quiet certainty. "Maybe not soon, but someday. And when you do, I'll be here. I'll probably be old and wrinkled by then, but I'll be here." "Humans and their certainty about uncertain things," Zarkon said gently. "Not uncertainty. Promise." She held out her smallest finger. "On Earth, we have this thing called a pinky promise. It's sacred. You can't break it." Bemused, Zarkon carefully hooked his smallest claw around her tiny finger. "I promise, Emma Chen, that if the universe allows it, I will return." "Good enough," she said, blinking rapidly. "You should go. Your fleet is waiting. He boarded his ship, placing the plant carefully in a secure holder where he could see it from the pilot's seat. As the engines powered up, he took one last look at the research station. The humans had gathered outside, waving farewell. Emma stood in front, both hands raised high. The ship lifted off smoothly, Dr. Martinez's repairs holding perfectly. As the planet fell away below, Zarkon engaged the communications system. "War leader returning," he announced. "Prepare to receive survey data for uninhabited system." "Acknowledged," Vartos replied. "Welcome back, war leader." As his ship approached the fleet, Zarkon began composing his report. It was a masterwork of technical truth. The planet was harsh, resources minimal, location strategically irrelevant. He made it sound so uninteresting that no one would ever bother visiting. He filed it immediately upon docking, watching as it was logged into the Empire's vast database as just another empty system among thousands. "Your time on the surface was extended," Vartos noted when they met in person. "Were there complications?" "The damage was more severe than initially assessed," Zarkon replied, "and the planet's environment was challenging. Barely survived." "Yet you did survive. Alone, with no assistance. A testament to Draconis' strength." "Indeed," Zarkon agreed, thinking of small human hands carefully removing his scales, of water poured by a child who saw not an enemy, but someone in need. Life returned to routine. Patrols, reports, the endless business of Empire. But something had fundamentally changed. In meetings where fellow officers spoke dismissively of lesser species, Zarkon found himself thinking of Dr. Chen's greenhouse, where different worlds grew together. When discussing resource extraction, he remembered Emma's certainty that nothing was desolate if you looked closely enough. When the topic of humanity's rapid expansion arose, he thought of their adaptability, their curiosity, their inexplicable kindness. He kept the plant on his desk, carefully tending it. His crew found it odd, but said nothing. War leaders were entitled to their eccentricities. When alone, he would play Emma's recording of the moonrise, watching 5 moons paint a desert in impossible colors while human music played softly in the background. 3 months later, a report crossed his desk that made his hearts freeze. A Valorian trade convoy had detected an energy signature in empty system he'd cataloged. They were requesting permission to investigate. Without hesitation, Zarkon denied the request, citing the system's previous survey and lack of strategic value. When the Valorians protested, he invoked his authority as regional war leader to mark the system as a prohibited zone for ongoing classified research. It was a significant abuse of power, but it would buy time. That night, he sent a coded message using Marcus's communication device. "Valorians detected energy signature. Have delayed investigation. Recommend reducing power consumption, enhancing shields." The reply came 12 hours later, text only but unmistakably Emma. "Got it. Dad's working on stealth shields. Thanks for the warning. P.S. Hope is a nice name for a plant. Did yours bloom yet?" He looked at the small plant on his desk, which had indeed produced a single luminescent flower. "Just beginning," he sent back. Over the following months, such exchanges became regular. The humans updated him on their research, sending images of new additions to the greenhouse and excited reports of breakthrough discoveries. He warned them of patrol routes, helped them understand alien technologies they had acquired, and gradually became part of their extended community despite the vast distance. A year passed. Zarkon rose in rank, his successful handling of various situations earning recognition. He used his growing influence to quietly protect not just Emma's planet, but other small research outposts and developing worlds. He became known for thorough surveys that somehow always found strategic reasons to leave certain systems untouched. "You're getting a reputation," Vartos warned him one day. "Some call you the Protector. They say you've gone soft. Let them say it, Zarkon replied. My record speaks for itself. True, but records can be examined. Be careful, old friend. The Empire values strength, not mercy. That night, he sent another message to the station. May need to visit soon for follow-up survey. Imperial scrutiny increasing. You're always welcome, came the reply. Emma's been preparing a presentation about dragon mythology. She's driving everyone crazy practicing. 2 years after his crash, Zarkon finally found legitimate reason to return. A routine verification of previous surveys, checking for any changes that might affect the Empire's database. He volunteered immediately, citing his familiarity with the region. Approaching the Red Planet again, he was struck by how different it felt. Before, it had been a place of death. Now it was where his life had truly begun. The research station had expanded. New domes gleamed in the sunlight, and he could see the greenhouse had doubled in size. As his ship descended, he spotted a familiar small figure jumping up and down on the landing pad. Emma had grown taller, though she was still tiny by Draconis standards. The moment he disembarked, she rushed forward, wrapping her arms around his leg just as she had 2 years ago. You came back? I knew you would. Oh, there's so much to show you. She pulled back, beaming. How long can you stay? A few days at most. This is an official visit, but I've arranged the schedule to allow some flexibility. Days are good. We can work with days. Mom and Dad will be so happy. And wait until you see the new greenhouse sections. We have specimens from 12 different worlds now, all growing together. As she led him toward the station, chattering excitedly about everything he'd missed, Zarkon felt the tension he'd carried for 2 years ease. He was back among friends, however briefly. The reunion was joyful. The station staff welcomed him like a long-lost colleague, eager to share their progress and hear his stories. The evening meal became a celebration, with Dr. Patel preparing dishes from multiple worlds in honor of their diverse guest. Your messages helped us so much, Dr. Chen said. The shield modifications you suggested allowed us to continue our work without detection. And the technical specifications you sent, Marcus added. I've been able to adapt so many concepts for our equipment. Look. I'll show you after dinner. But it was Emma who commanded most of his attention, dragging him from place to place with unbounded enthusiasm. She'd grown more knowledgeable, but retained her wonder at the universe's possibilities. In the greenhouse, she showed him thriving ecosystems that should have been impossible. See? Valorian fungi growing on Nexari trees, fed by earth insects, all in balance. Everyone said it couldn't work, but life finds a way when you give it a chance. She looked up at him meaningfully. Just like friendships between dragons and humans. That night, they sat in the observation dome watching the 5-moon rise. Emma had created what she called viewing chairs. One human-sized, one reinforced and expanded for Draconis proportions. I made the big one just for you, she said. For when you visit. You were that certain I'd return? Of course. We're friends. Friends always come back. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the familiar light show. Finally, Emma spoke again. The plant you gave me, Hope, it's huge now. Want to see? She led him to a corner of the greenhouse where a magnificent specimen bloomed, its bioluminescent flowers casting soft blue light. I've been propagating it, Emma explained. Every new researcher who comes gets a cutting. We tell them the story, how a dragon brought us hope that the galaxy could be different. Some of them think we're making it up until they check the logs and see you were really here. And what do they think then? That maybe the universe is more interesting than anyone imagined. That maybe all the things that divide species aren't as important as what connects us. She touched one of the glowing flowers. That's what you taught us, you know. Not just me, everyone here. You showed us that kindness can transcend any barrier. You showed me first, Zarkon corrected gently. I was dying, and you saw not an alien or an enemy, but simply someone who needed help. Anyone would have... No, Emma, not anyone. That's what makes your species remarkable. That's why I protect this place and others like it. The galaxy needs what you're building here, proof that cooperation is possible, that diversity strengthens rather than weakens. Emma smiled. Mom says the same thing. She thinks our research could change how species interact, but only if we have time to prove it works. You'll have time, Zarkon promised. I'll make sure of it. The rest of his visit passed too quickly. He reviewed their research, offered suggestions for improving their defensive systems, and even attempted to play chess with Dr. Johnson. He lost spectacularly. When departure time came, the farewell was easier than before. They all knew he'd return when he could. Take care of yourself, Emma said, handing him another plant. This one's from Hope's first generation. I thought your ship could use more life. My quarters are becoming quite the garden, he said, accepting the gift. My crew thinks I've lost my mind. Maybe you found it instead. She hugged his leg one more time. Safe travels, friend. As his ship lifted off, Zarkon thought about her words. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps the war leader who'd crashed on this planet had been the one who'd lost his mind, seeing only conquest and resource extraction. The being who left now understood that the universe's greatest treasures weren't materials to be claimed, but connections to be cherished. Years passed. Zarkon rose to command an entire fleet, using his influence to subtly reshape Draconis policy. He advocated for protectorate status for developing worlds, pushed for cultural exchange programs, and gradually introduced ideas that would have been heretical from anyone else. From the hero of the Battle of Nexus Prime, such suggestions carried weight. He returned to the Red Planet when he could, watching Emma grow from an enthusiastic child into a brilliant young scientist. The research station flourished, becoming a model for interspecies cooperation. Other facilities began adopting their methods, creating pockets of harmony throughout the galaxy. 10 years after that first encounter, Zarkon stood before the Draconis High Council, proposing something unprecedented, an official alliance with humanity based on mutual benefit rather than domination. The debate was fierce, but he had prepared carefully, using every lesson learned from his human friends. They offer what we cannot achieve alone, he argued. Innovation through diversity, strength through cooperation. Yes, they are physically weaker, technologically younger, but they possess something invaluable, the ability to see potential where others see only difference. When the Council finally approved the alliance, it was by the narrowest margin, but it was enough. His first act was to remove the Red Planet from the prohibited list, revealing the research station's existence. Rather than anger, the Council expressed curiosity about this facility that had influenced their greatest war leader so profoundly. I want to visit this place, the Elder Counselor said, to meet these humans who changed your perspective so dramatically. Which was how, 6 months later, Zarkon found himself escorting a delegation of high-ranking Draconis to a small research station on an undistinguished red planet. Emma, now Dr. Chen like her mother, greeted them with the same fearless enthusiasm she'd shown as a child. Welcome to our home, she said, addressing beings who could crush her without effort. We're so glad you're here. Would you like to see the greenhouse? We have a special section dedicated to plant species from the Draconis home world. As Zarkon watched his fellow Draconis slowly warm to human hospitality, experiencing the same paradigm shift he had undergone, he thought about the strange paths the universe provided. A crash landing that should have meant death became the catalyst for change. A child's compassion rippled outward, touching entire civilizations. That night, as 5 moons painted the desert in ethereal colors, the Draconis delegation sat with human researchers, sharing stories and possibilities. Emma found a moment to stand beside Zarkon, now dwarfed even more dramatically by his increased size and ceremonial armor. "Look what you started," she said softly. "Dragons and humans, talking as equals." "You started it," he corrected, with a container of water and boundless compassion. "We started it together," she compromised, "and look how far it's spread." Indeed, as Zarkon gazed at the unprecedented gathering, he saw the future reshaping itself, not through conquest or force, but through the simple act of reaching across difference. The galaxy was vast, full of species that misunderstood and feared each other. But if a dying dragon and a human child could become friends, anything was possible. The plant Hope bloomed in the greenhouse, its offspring scattered across 100 worlds, each one a reminder that the smallest acts of kindness could grow into something magnificent. And in the observation dome of a research station on a red planet at the edge of known space, the seeds of a better galaxy continued to grow. Tended by those who believed that diversity was not a weakness to overcome, but a strength to be celebrated. Zarkon kept his promise. He came back whenever he could, watching Emma's children play in the same halls where she had once led him. They called him Uncle Dragon and showed no fear, only curiosity and delight. And each time he visited, he brought new allies, species willing to try the radical experiment of cooperation over conquest. The alien dragon was no longer dying of thirst. Thanks to a human girl who offered hope, he had found something far more sustaining than water. He had found purpose, friendship, and a universe of infinite possibility.